Hello, BWeb members. This is your director, your BWeb Tech Director, Crystal, and we are here again to continue our technical workshop series. And in this episode, I will be teaching you how to use Figma, or more of the introduction to Figma and getting you guys started. This is a pretty powerful program. A lot of people in design use it, and when I say design, it's UX, UI design, and also graphic design. It's a pretty new program compared to other programs you might have heard, and we'll walk through, in this presentation, we'll walk through what exactly is it, since some of you may not know what it is, how to use it, who uses it, and at the very end, I will walk you through the interface and talk about all the features. I will probably miss some, but um, I highly suggest that you guys, once you guys get settled and get your account and everything, to play around with it, as it is pretty intuitive, and you guys are going to discover a lot of things that you can do with this program. So we will continue. I will try to make this as short as possible so we get straight to it. Okay. Let's see. There we go. What is Figma? So Figma is a cloud-based UX and UI design application. This is a pretty popular application amongst designers, especially recently, compared to other applications that I will get into a little bit more later. There's a lot of advantages to using this program, and it's a pretty powerful one in the sense that you have a lot of freedom. They work with vectors, and that makes designing a lot easier compared to other applications. And it's just a great application overall for design. And it's mainly used for digital design and prototyping. So you can use this application when you want to create your own website or apps. Again, like I said before, it's also used for graphic design. So you can also design merchandise and other apparel, social media posts, and a lot more. And people can collaborate on projects from anywhere. So we'll get a little bit more into that later, but this is kind of a overall general idea of what this program is. So to sum it up, it's a very powerful program used for designers. So some use cases. It's used for UI and UX design, and you can further dive deeper into that and say that you can use it for prototyping and wireframing, and again, like I said before, also graphic design. A lot of these terms, if they seem unfamiliar to you, such as if I'm saying wireframing or prototyping, you don't know what that is, I would highly suggest that you look at the UI and UX presentation that BWeb Tech has uploaded on the drive. It is, if you click on the drive, it is in the tech folder, and under, I believe, 2019 to 2020 presentations, something like that. That's the title. And that presentation will dive deeper into what exactly is UI and UX and define all these terms. I will not do it in this presentation just to save some time, as this is an introduction into Figma and not into UI and UX, but I would highly suggest looking at that presentation for reference. I have also linked that presentation at the end of this presentation in the reference slide. Like all other slides, this slide will also can also be found in the Google Drive. So be sure to download it or save it if you want, and you can access the link from there. So yeah. This is an example of how you would use Figma. So if you are trying to make your own website or app, something in design that you would do is design every single page and every interaction that the user would have. So if you start like left to right, like here, for example, you would have maybe the landing page of your website or app, and from there on you would think, or you would start to build how your app or website would look like, in the sense that, oh, if you click on a certain button, where would it take you? Or if you click on this tab or this hyperlink, what page would that take you? And so these lines right here kind of represent the user flow of someone using your app or your website. And it looks a bit messy and overwhelming and confusing right now, but everything's like in the program is labeled, so when someone else is looking at your work, and they know what they're looking at. This is pretty much common in the design world. But the main thing to note is that as a designer, you want to look at every single interaction that your users have, and so you want to design for every aspect. So like you can see here, there's a lot of different pages and a lot of different I guess locations you could say that like that are in like the next step. So if you're like in this column, say, right, and you click on this something here versus something here, it takes you somewhere totally different. So as a designer, you need to know or be aware of your app or your website from the inside out. So some other popular design applications are Sketch, Adobe XD, InVision Studio, and Framer. And if you are also on the graphic design side or anything of that sort, you also may have heard of Illustrator. On Figma's website, they do have some comparisons where they compare their product, Figma, to these other applications, and they talk about the advantages of using Figma over these particular applications. I will not dive into it as I think that their blogs or their posts cover it pretty well. I will say the one thing to note that if you do use Sketch at the moment and you want to transition to Figma, Figma allows you to import your sketch files into Figma and work from there. So they make the transition as easy and as smoothly as possible for you if you want to transition into Figma. For the other ones, I don't think that is possible, but I do know that is the case for Sketch. So why use Figma? One, it's free, and that is great for us college students. Unlike paying for like Adobe Photoshop and Adobe Illustrator and that whole package, or paying the monthly fee and everything, which I know can get pretty expensive, Figma is free. So when you verify your student account, you don't have to pay anything and you get all the features that come with it. It's collaborative. So Figma is like the Google Drive or the Google Docs of design, in the sense that you are able to share your work and share your files with anyone you want, and they can edit your files from there and comment and this and that. So if you're working in teams, it makes things very easy. It consolidates all your work, so you don't have to send files here and there and have some problem with sending files or converting files or anything of that sort. It's pretty easy. The next thing is it's easy to use and it's intuitive. So like it says here, everything in Figma is labeled and the icons are easy to read. It's pretty easy for any beginner to use. Figma is one of those applications where I highly suggest that you go on and play around with it and get a feel for it. I will walk through some of the basics, but I do highly suggest that afterwards, if you guys do make an account or download the application, to play around with it and see how things go on your end. One other thing that Figma has over some other applications is that it's browser-based. So you don't have to download the application, the desktop application. You can just work from it on a browser, in a browser tab, and make an account, or like just log in and work from there. Sometimes that, in a sense, that does make things easier, where you don't have to store everything on your computer memory, and you can just work from the browser. Sharing files is really easy. That goes to say, or that goes along with the collaborative sense, in that you are able to invite people, other designers, to your files to work from, or there's also a button where you can get the hyperlink or just get the URL link and share that too. So sharing your work is really easy, and that is something that's very valued in the designer realm, because design is a very collaborative subject. And another thing is you can edit in real time. So when you invite other people and other designers to comment and make some edits on your work, there's no lag. You can see it as it's happening. It's like Google Docs, where whenever you make an edit or someone else makes an edit, you see it happening right there and then. You can also work remotely with Figma, and so that's another advantage, because since people are able to work on your own files and your own projects, you don't have to be there physically with them. You can work from your office or your home. They can work from their place, but you can still see the same work happening real time on your computer. So here are some references that I've linked. I highly suggest playing around or exploring Figma's own website. Since it is a design application, they have designed their website really well, in my opinion. There's a lot of great tutorials that you can find and a video series and everything. I think they explain the product very well, and you just have to explore their website a bit. So I highly suggest going there and looking around. And like I said before, I have linked the BWib Tech UX and UI design PowerPoint right here, and that will teach you, if you are interested in going into UI and UX, it will help you get into the right mindset and have an introduction into the field. So I guess it is time to get started. So I will introduce the site. So this is Figma's website. And here is a good example of what exactly you can do with Figma. And then here you can see it's simulating how you would build an app and the user flow between each site and each page. And so this is what you would get from that. Right here, if you click there, it leads you to this page and such and such. So this is an example of an app that you can design in Figma. And they explain, like I said before, they explain the product pretty well. And if you go at the very top, go to resources, and you go to their help center, which I have here, they have a lot of tabs and a lot of resources and blogs and such to help you get started. So like I said, I was thinking about building a PowerPoint about this, but I think they covered their product pretty well. So how to sign up. You can sign up at the top here, and that will just make your account, and you can just log in. Something that you all should do, since we are all college students, is scroll at the bottom and click Figma for Students. And right here, you can verify your student status. Like you can see here, I am a verified user, so I cannot walk you through this step as I have already done it, but just follow the instructions and you will be able to do so. I believe it's use your ucla.edu account, not your email account that you made, like your personal one that you made the primary email for my UCLA. I believe it is you have to use your ucla.edu account. So yeah, so once you verify your student status and follow all the instructions, you should be ready to go. So in that sense, you can either log in, like I have here, on your browser. So I am on Chrome right now, and I can log into my account. Or if you want, you can also download the application. The interface will be the exact same. There's no difference between working from a browser and the desktop application, but I am just going to open my desktop application because I do have it downloaded here. So when you open it up, it will take you to the Recents tab, and if you just made an account, it will show you some files that Figma has installed for you to help you get started. But in my case, you can see all the projects that I have been working on. So just a tour, if you want to add a new file or make a new file, you click on this plus button right here. If you want to import something such as a sketch file, like I mentioned earlier, click here. The help center or help and resources button right here. If you have a team that you want to work with, you can create a new team here and add other people to work on whatever project that you are working on. Here you can see I have two teams, BWib Tech and ACM Design. If I click BWib Tech here, it's kind of like a Google Drive folder where you have folders and you can put files within that project folder. So here I have the spring, or what would have been the spring 2020 committee project that's unfortunately being pushed back, but all those files will go here, and I will invite all the members of the BWib Tech committee when that time comes. Here are some plugins that Figma has installed to help you get started. And they also have a lot of templates if you're trying to build like wireframes and mockups and such. They have really good templates for you to use if that's something you're interested in. These are really good resources, especially when you're just starting out in UI and UX design and you don't know much about it. So Figma has really curated um, their own resource list for you to look at. And here is just the drafts tab for all the drafts that you are working on, or in my case that I'm working on, that I can easily access. And Figma is run kind of like a browser where you have all the tabs for all the projects that you have opened up at the top here, and you have, you know, your minimize and X'd out tabs and such here. So some examples of what you can do. Here I have made a while ago the BWeb Tech logo, and as you can see, there's a lot of different parts that are listed on the left here. So all these parts go under this whole framework right here, or this just a frame, which is basically laying the groundwork, something that lays the groundwork of your design, and in my case it is this logo. And you can see all these parts, rectangles and ellipses and text and everything fall under that. So yeah, so you can see that something as small as a logo takes a lot of different parts and a lot of thinking to go with it, from all the rectangles to the text and the coloring. There's a lot that goes into making this logo. Another thing, example that shows the more collaborative aspect of Figma is this file right here, which shows the Facebook banner for ACM Design's recruitment cycle. Here, this banner, or this framework right here, this frame is my frame and it shows the design version that I created. I was on this file with 2 other members of my team, and this was one other member, and these are his iterations and his different versions, and his final version is right here, frame 3. This right here is another member's version right here. So as you can see, we all kind of worked on our own thing in the same file, and if I zoom out, there's a lot of room to work with. And what came out of our work was this frame 4 right here. So we took elements from each of our designs and added it to this design right here, and that's what we went with. As I said before, Figma is a very collaborative tool, and people can work on the same file at the same time and edit things in real time and throw everything everywhere. So yeah, this is a file that shows that collaboration and teamwork, and that is something that you guys can do too. Here's another example of a more graphic design element. If you had CS friends, or were a CS or are a CS major yourself, and you were doing all these bingos throughout quarantine, this is an example of something that you might have seen a few weeks ago. And this CS bingo was created by me and another teammate of mine. So we both just edited the same frame and worked on it within this file. So yes, I also had to share this file with other people on ACM and UPE, since this was a collaboration between 2 organizations, just to see what they thought of the design, other than people in ACM design specifically. So yeah, that's another example of how this program can be used to collaborate. So when you make a new file or folder, or I guess file, this is what you will see. It's completely blank. There's nothing there, and you can just get started from here. So a quick tour. Here you can title your project. So we'll call it BWeb Technical Workshop Series right here. You can rename it like that. If you click the drop down bar, you can rename it, delete it, move it to a certain project or a certain project folder. But right now we'll just keep it as a file. And it's labeled drafts right now because we haven't saved it. Here, you can see that me, Crystal, I am working on this file, but if you do share this file with other people, you will see their icons, kind of like a Google Doc at the top here. And what's really cool about it is if you want to see what someone else is working on, you can click their icon. I can't show it obviously right now because no one's on this, but if there was someone else on here, you can click their icon, so like their circle thing here, like mine, and you can see what they're working on. So it's kind of like screen sharing, which is pretty cool because you can actually see like their screen and what they're doing in this file. Here's the share tab, and you can type in people to invite and edit like you would on a normal Google Doc, or copy the URL and share it with other people as well. This button here is a presentation mode, so it's kind of like when you build a PowerPoint and you want to play the PowerPoint from the start and you click present, like the present button to do so. It's kind of the same idea. Here's the tab to the zoom tab and the keyboard shortcuts that go along with that. So zoom in and zoom out is shift plus and shift minus. Zoom to fit, shift 1, zoom to 100%, shift 0, and some other options as well. If you want rulers to help with scaling and such, you can feel free to click on that and it will show you the rulers that will show up on the sides. But in this case, you don't really need it, since everything you can scale on another area, so I don't think you really need to, but if you want, you can have those there as well. So these tabs, the design tab, so here you have the background. You can change the color. You can also change the transparency. So if you want to change the color and transparency is down here, you are able to do so. If you don't want to see it or just not look at it, you can click this eye feature here, which when it's shut, it will turn off the background. It won't necessarily mean that it's deleted. It just means that it will take it out so you won't see it. This eye you will see it in other features as well. So essentially what it means is if you close the eye, you won't see it. If it's on, you will see it. It's not, doesn't mean it's deleted, it's still there, it just turns it off. And here's the export button. You can export your file into different types of files: PNG, JPEG, PDF, SVG, all that stuff. And you can preview right here, but obviously since I haven't done anything, you can't see anything there. Prototyping. So prototyping is mainly for when you're building like apps and websites. All those lines that you saw before are for the user flows. You can create those connections here and also run your prototype. So essentially simulate a user using your app or your website in certain like scenarios too. So if they're using a desktop versus a tablet versus a phone, what would that look like? You can do that all on Figma. Here, with device here, like I said, you can specify what you want with it, with Apple Watch, iPad, iPhone, Android, all that stuff. And here, if you click the code tab, whatever feature you add in here, it will give you the code for that. Right here, you have the code for the background, but you can also change the code like this, depending on what kind of code you want to see. And this is for, this just helps better understand what goes on the other side of designing or making an app or a website. It's not just the design side that you have to consider, it's also the development side. So this code here is just to help with that. So here on this side, you have layers tab and the assets tab. And assets, if you have a folder of different assets that you have, and you can just pull from that, but right now we'll just deal with layers. And you can, whatever part that you put on here, it will show up in this layers tab, and you can organize all that in pages, but for now we'll just have one page since we won't be doing much. Here's the menu bar with, I know, your typical menu items like you would see in a Word document. Pretty much doing the same thing. The move option, keyboard shortcut would be V here. It's basically your cursor. Scale, essentially what it sounds like. If you want to scale up or scale down a certain part, you click on this. Frame, right here. So frames, like I said before, are basically the groundwork for your project. We can just build one right here. So, whoops. Frame. So, like when you, like I said before, with the different devices, when you click frames, you can choose certain devices that you have. So if I choose like iPhone 8 Plus. We'll make a frame so everything's sized for the iPhone 8 Plus, also with Androids and tablets and all that other stuff. But I'll just make like a normal frame here, like that. We'll make it a bit bigger so I don't have to resize it later. There you go. Here's the slice tool. I believe it's kind of like a snipping tool or a screenshot tool, but we don't have to deal with that now. Here are just the options to build your simple shapes if you want to make icons or just a rectangle for simulate an application on a phone or something. These are the tools that you would use. The pen tool is essentially the same as the shape tool, but for more complex shapes, or more unconventional shapes, I should say. And the pencil is, a lot of people use the pencil for building wireframes and mockups when you're making notes and drawing things out. If you don't want to build anything yet and you just want to draw like simple squares and boxes and where things are going to be laid out, pencil is great for that. You can also add text. Here's the move icon. If you have a mouse pad, you can also scroll like that as well. But you can just click and drag like that. Also the comments, if there's like a certain thing you want to comment on, click on that asset or that feature or part, make a comment, post it, and other people can see it. So with this frame, okay, so I can rename it by double clicking on the name here or double clicking here, call it bwib. And on the right hand side, you can see that there are, if I click on the frame here, you can see that there are different features, I guess, or different like descriptions of the current frame that I have now. So it shows the coordinates and it shows the width and height measurements, which I can also change. Like if I just resize it like this, it will move accordingly. If I want to scale and keep the proportions, I can click this button here and it will constrain the proportions. I can rotate things. So if I click like that, I can also use, if I want to go back, I can Control Z like a normal like Word doc. Here, I can round corners. So if I round corners like this, this is a current design trend actually, where people are making things look softer by rounding corners and using gradients and stuff, rather than having like sharp corners. It's just an aesthetic thing that's happening right now. And if I want to have something a bit more customizable, I can choose certain corners to play around with and have things a bit different. So one corner be different from another, but yeah, I don't need that now. These are the options for layout or automatic layouts, and you can play around with that. Here's layout grid. So if I click on that, and I can see a grid here. If I click this icon here, I can change the size and the colors of the grid. Again, with this eye, if I close it, you won't see it, but that doesn't mean I will delete it, just I don't see it. And if I want to delete it, I just click this minus button here. Same here with this fill option, I can choose to fill the color. So let's make it this softer, like red color right here. Or actually here, we'll make it solid red. And here you can play with the transparency of the color. Here I can play around with effects. So I can make a gradient. So if I want to play around with this gradient, I can click somewhere here and make it softer by dragging like that. Or I can switch these around like this. Or if I wanted to, instead of clicking on here, I can click here as well and do the same thing. I can change the orientation of the gradients like so by dragging this line, this gradient line. I can do different types of gradients, so a radial gradient, an angular gradient, diamond. I can insert a picture. I can do all sorts of things. Let's keep it solid for now. And this this tool right here, stopping tool, I can, let's zoom out. If I make a rectangle and I color it like a nice blue. And say I want this to be the same color, but I don't want to scroll or like click around here and click around here, and I'm afraid that I won't get the same color. I can just click this top-in tool here and it will make the same color. So yeah. Here, the stroke is essentially kind of like a border. So let's make it something a bit big so you can see. So here, I have it at 20. So you can see this outline here. Again, I can change the color. Let's make it black so it's easier to see. You can change the transparency again, like I did with the fill color. I can change what type of stroke I want. I can do more settings here by clicking these three dots and making things more rounded, or make line arrows. These are more stroke options for lines, not necessarily outlines, but when you see lines, you can just play around with that. Again, with the eye, if you don't want to see it, but you don't like, you want to see what it looks like with and without it, you can use this eye. If you want to delete it, you can click this minus right here. Effects are mainly just shadows, so you can choose a type of shadow. If you click here, the sun symbol, you can choose how strong you want it. You can choose where you want it, so where and how much. So let's see. Actually, let's see if you can see the shadow here that I over exaggerated, just so you can see. And you can choose what side you want. You can choose one side to be stronger than the other, that, or I can go on the other side by doing -15, like that. Now I can do a lot. I can change the color and the transparency. Yeah, there's a lot. Yeah, so I guess we'll keep that. And if I want to export it right now, if I preview, because I have this highlighted, it will just export this frame. However, if I click out of that and I want to export everything that I have in this file, it will show up like this. It will also include that little square that I have. So another thing to note about using different parts is, so everything that you make will go inside of a frame. So everything that you should make, whether that be like an app or a website or anything, it should go in a frame. That's just how it works. So when you drag another part into a frame like this, notice on this left-hand side that it goes from being on top to going under. See that? So that essentially means when you put it under like that, it essentially means that this rectangle is now a part of this frame. So you see there's this triangle icon here, and if you click in and out, it'll just show like, oh, it's like a sub part, kind of like bullet points, where this is like a part of this like next statement. It's just kind of a similar idea. So when you move the frame, it will move everything within it, including this rectangle. Now, if you want to make a continuous pattern with this rectangle, so kind of like a brick pattern of some sort, and you want it to be continuous and go continue outside of the edge, what you can do is put it like this, and see, this is the whole rectangle right now. And if I click out of it, this will the frame will cut off the part that is not in the frame. It's still there, it's just kind of hidden, so it will just automatically like crop it, but it's still there. So when you export, this is all that you will see. However, then something that's interesting is if you leave it out, right, like this, and you're able to manually move things down, right, like this, right? So if you manually move this under, what that will do is essentially, if it's not in the frame, but it's just lying under, which is something you guys should be careful of, is that it just means that this frame will sit on top of this rectangle. It's not inside, so how you can see is if you export it, if you export everything, you can still see that it's outside of the frame. It's just outside of the frame. That's essentially what it is. It's not inside the frame, so it will export everything. So when you can move things in and out manually like this, but that's something you should be careful of how it's being moved. Something to note is if you want to move, say you have a lot of different things, and one thing that you can do is like click and drag everything and move everything all at once, but say things are like separate like this and things are overlapping each other, and you do that same thing and you move everything together. But say that there's something that you want to stay right where it is and you don't want it to move at all, but you want to move everything else, but you can't really do that because it's in the way and you don't want to move anything without moving this one part. I don't know if that makes any sense, but you guys know what I mean, hopefully. So what you can do is you click, so say I don't want to move the frame. Here, I can click this lock symbol and lock it. So when I click and drag other parts, it's not going to pick up this frame. Because this rectangle is in it, this also means this rectangle is locked. And I can't do any editing on it at all, or even move it. So let's see, I move it out, I lock this frame. If I click and drag, the only thing that moves, whoops, the only thing that moves is this rectangle. That's it. Like I can't select this at all because it is locked. And even if I move it inside, I click and drag to select everything and I move it out, it's not going to do anything because it's locked. Yeah. Again, with the eyes, if I want to see something, or if I don't want to see something, I can turn it off, but it's still there. It's just, you can't see it. Another thing is that it's kind of like Word, where if you click Control-C on this rectangle, click Control-V, it will copy it, and it will just be on top of it. However, another way to copy something is if you click on a part and highlight it, you click Option on a Mac, I'm not sure what it would be for Windows, and you click and drag. Oh, why does it not work? There we go. You click and drag, and it will make another duplicate. And see, all these rectangles are with each other right here. They're all clearly labeled, but you are able, again, to rename. So say I want this to be white. This, it will highlight to the corresponding ones. So like this is rectangle 3. Same idea. So here, you can see the idea of placement, like I said here. So rectangle 3, which is the white rectangle, is above rectangle 1, which is this one right here. Because it's above it, it lies on top of it. However, because it's under rectangle 2 lies on top of rectangle 3. If I want rectangle 3 to lie on top of both, I can manually move it up and it will lie on top of both. You see? So that's something like that, or that's a feature you can play around with. And again, like these parts, same idea with the frame. You can edit everything here, strokes, effects, corners, all that stuff. Pen tool is something like, say, if I want to make a star, there is a star option, but if you just want to draw something, you can draw something like that. Or if you click and then you can drag and create like curves for just more random shapes like that. That's also something you can do with the pen tool. Something to note with the pen tool is with unlike some of the other applications, you don't have to consider the orientation of your line. So sometimes when you try to fill in a certain area on other applications or other like programs or something, it will tell you that, oh, if you want to fill in the certain area, so say like this area of the triangle, you have to consider the orientation of the lines because it only fills the right side of the line. However, because everything's vectorized in Figma, you don't have to worry about that, which is really nice and makes things a lot more convenient. So if I double click here and I click this bucket tool and I want to color only certain parts, or like just say like just the triangle parts, I don't want to leave this empty, I can do that. But in other programs you can't do that because it will just color everything or color nothing at all. And you don't have to worry about any of that with Figma. So that's something cool with the star. For text, you can create a text box. The one odd thing about the text box is once you build it, you have to type in it before you edit the text box. Otherwise, the text box will go away. That's something I found out. I'm not sure if there's anything to fix that yet, but that's just something to keep in mind. And again, you have all of the features here to play around with the text box itself. With the text, you can change the font, change the size. We'll make this into something that's more readable. It's a bit big. I'll make it a bit smaller. There we go. These three options here are just to play around with spacing. One's for line spacing, one's for spacing between words. Here's like letter spacing. If you click, instead of typing in the numbers, if you put your cursor over the symbol, you can see how my mouse turns into a line with two arrows. I can click and drag back and forth, and it will play around with the letter spacing like this. Same with these two options as well. And here, it's just centering options and alignment options. Here, I can align against the text box. So something that's interesting is if I have a text box like here, right? And I make my text box same size as this box, I can align my text at the bottom, and when I type, it will automatically align like this, like so. And this is really nice because if you're working with mockups and wireframes and such, and you have a lot of these types of text boxes, you don't have to do everything manually. Everything's done automatically. You don't have to align everything, each and everything by itself. Everything's just done for you. So that's pretty nice too. So that's pretty much the basics of Figma.
There's actually one more thing I wanted to talk about before we leave, and it's about editing these shapes here. So because everything in Figma is a vector, what you can do is, so if I double click here, you can't really see it with this blue. Let's actually try it here. Everything is a vector here. So what you can do, let's zoom in so you can better see, is you can pull apart, you can pull like this point and warp it and create like different shapes and stuff. So that's something that's really cool about this. You can also do the same with all the corners and make some odd rhombus shape or anything else with this rectangle. Yep, so essentially, yeah, you can pull from all the sides and then play around with it. Another thing you can do is with an ellipse, you can increase, oh no, sorry, with a polygon, you can increase the sides. So here, you can drag and change it to however many sides you want. So that's something that's pretty convenient. So you don't have to draw like a diamond or a pentagon or anything. You can just use this polygon shape. Yeah, so I believe that is pretty much it. Unless like, well, there's some things for lines and stuff. Like if you draw a line, there's effects you can do. Similar effects. You can also change the ends or change the caps and do different things. Let's see. believe it's here. Yeah, you can change the caps here, so you can make it round or square, or if I do an arrow, let's change this. So you can see it's an arrow now. Or if I change it to something more round, I can do that. Triangle arrow. So yeah, there's a lot of just little details that you can use to edit a lot of these features and shapes. So I think we're just going to stop here since I did throw a lot of information at how Figma works. If you are interested in using Figma, be sure to download it or make an account and use make it a student account so you have all the features that come with it for free. And I would highly suggest that you play around with it and see what you can do. These are just some of the basic things that beginners usually play around with in Figma, but I highly suggest you get a feel for it on your own and get familiar with it before we move on to our next project. So in the next episode, I will probably walk you guys through a more complicated prompt for you guys to actually work on and get a feel of what using Figma in a designing sense feels like. So yeah, we'll end it here. I hope you guys stay safe out there and have a great rest of the day. See you.